Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the June 11th, 2026 Public Safety and Legal Affairs Committee meeting. We are ready to go, and the first on the agenda, Services Coordinator, Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our ongoing project with I hope, to replace the fire training center that's currently located at 397 County Highway 58 in the town of Oleana. Well, actually, town of Belford, but Oleana mailing address. On Sunday, November 2nd, 1980, after over 5 years of planning, the Otsego County Fire Training Center was opened to the fire service of Otsego County. At that point, approximately 5 acres of land was donated to medical coaches to where it currently sits. On this site, there's a 20 by 20 foot, 2-story concrete smokehouse and burn building. That's what we use to do our live fire evolutions. That at that point was erected at a cost of $16,000. That's again back in 1980. The classroom now is a 1982 24 by 40 single-story modular that was donated to the county for use as a classroom. And it was reassembled by members of the volunteer fire service at no cost to the county. 93, the classroom building underwent minor modifications to accommodate larger student numbers and still isn't quite large enough.
What's the capacity now?
Boy, I don't think we can exceed 15 people, if that. In 1989, 2 used 12 by 60 foot mobile homes were donated for the use as interior firefighting maze units. One has since, just over the years, because they're obviously out in the elements, they don't hold up very well. The one became entirely dilapidated. The other one has just about reached the same stage, has several structural issues that we don't deem that it's safe to use. We had received permission previously to dispose of that at no cost to the county. However, the individual that was initially interested in that had since changed their mind. Again, I want to place emphasis on the fact that all of this, with the exception of the concrete structure, everything is donated other than the $16,000. Obviously, we fast forward many years later, this project to replace it in its entirety is going to cost quite a bit of money. The problem that we are facing now with the concrete structure being 46 years old, if we are to continue to use that, we are going to have a structural engineer come in and certify that building and be able to use that. I suspect that that's probably not going to happen at this point, which will force us to either not be able to hold courses entirely, or at least that component of the class, or force our students to have to travel outside of the county to other counties, providing there is space in those classes for them to attend. It's not necessarily a guarantee. We've been working with SMSA for the past couple of years. When I was appointed in 2021, it was made clear that our first priority was the replacement of the training center to get this project finalized. And here we sit in 2026. A lot of obstacles, throughout the time frame there that has not led us to much progress other than to reconsider the location based upon the possibility of land acquisition in a more centrally located spot in the county, which we have since taken care of. I had Mindy and Jim here today to talk a little bit more in depth about the project, where we're looking as far as A&E work at this point, just to do the design of it, what that's going to cost, and why there's a a difference in cost compared to the current site to where the new site is. I've also included some photographs of the current training center that Damon will run through. You want to go through them, Damon? Just to show you what we currently have available to us. 5 acres might seem like a lot, but it's really not. This is the burn building. Not exactly ideal as far as scenario based due to the size of it itself. It really needs to be a little bigger in size. It makes it extremely difficult to do annual training, such as what they call window bailout training for interior firefighters. It's just not set up for that.
Well, in addition, you've got a combustible addition on top.
Correct. Correct. That's the classroom itself that we use currently today. There's a small garage out back that we usually put the door simulator in there to simulate door breaches and entry into locked structures.
Classroom only goes to about here, the rest is
Yeah.
garage.
Right about where that window is. There's one of the trailers that I was referencing earlier about the interior firefighter maze that they used to do a simulated course where you did wall breaches and those sort of evolutions. You can see the cracks. There's several of them, as it should be. I mean, wear and tear over the years, and the fact that it sits out in the elements, it's not something that you can really protect. It is 46 years old. Certainly has reached its life expectancy probably years ago.
So these are regulated by FPA standard 1402.
Mm-hmm.
It does not meet that standard even close any longer. Plus, New York State now has requirements on these.
Yeah, the Office of Fire Prevention and Control are the ones that they assist us with. I submit the request as fire coordinator to host specific classes, but they also provide guidance on what's required for each class, how many instructors, how many students, what materials you can burn, the safety of the facility itself. This is the interior of one of the burn pods inside the concrete building.
You can never pass it.
No, and that's what I'm concerned about now, but to turn and there's some tiles and stuff that we're supposed to, they're supposed to be in place to do live fire evolutions, but because of the amount of fires that we've had in there over the years, they're not doing what they're designed to do anymore. That's the stairwell down from the second story down to the first level where the side door faces the classroom. Some bad photography by me. Again, that's just another photo of where the tiles are supposed to be. You can see where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, this is the first floor, I think.
We've had several steps over the years that we've had to that they've had to be welded together because they're not holding up. We've had a couple of injuries over the years. That was the memorial stone for late fire coordinator Walt Morrison that we've since fixed because it got toppled over one winter. That's the exterior front entrance to the classroom. One of the inside bathrooms. That's the store. No, which one's that, David? Oh, that's the entrance to the bathroom. Entrance by the AED cabinet. That's the size of the classroom. It's pretty small. I mean, the picture kind of makes it look bigger than it is, but I can assure you it's really not that large. The ceiling tiles in there, you can tell everything started to come down. We've had some roof leaks over the years. That's the storage closet that we have in the back. Building services has been really good about, they went down and did a lot of the repairs in, interior, to make it so it's still safe enough to host classes in there. Code enforcement's been down for the town of Milford. EMS, currently shares that building as well. Some of the EMS crews go down there during the day.
If you get some potential for black mold.
Yeah, that's,
That's in the classroom.
no, or is this the
This is
trailer?
maze.
Yeah, this is the maze. This is the one that needs to be removed, but, thought we had that lined up, and then after he saw the condition, he backed out. It's just a light tower.
Yeah, that's the only two exterior lighting for the whole building.
That's why we have to supplement it with our light tower that we've been granted through Homeland Security. So that's it for the photographs. Just to give you a brief picture of what is currently there. I would absolutely entertain any time that any of the board members wants to come down and tour the facility, to see exactly what we have to work with. But at this point, I don't. I do have to talk to my fire protection specialist. Each county is assigned a fire protection specialist from Office of Fire Prevention and Control. But we don't feel at this point, without an engineer study, that this building is going to be safe to use moving forward. So we're kind of at a standstill now. We either address the issue, or we're going to be looking at sending students elsewhere if that can even be accommodated. Again, it's not a guarantee. Usually the county that's hosting the program is given first right of refusal to students within their county, and then it goes kind of like off a wait list from there. So if there's no questions about just the photographs itself, I'll invite Mindy and Jim up to talk about some of the maps and stuff that we've got to look at so far, and talk about some of the discussions we've had so far to date, what we'd like to do moving forward, and answer questions that public safety might have. Well, come up and join us, guys. All right, sit right up here. And Damon can pull up the other maps if you just want to walk through the survey, Dave, number one.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll
Okay.
The other one thing.
Thank you. Sure.
And just as another piece of history that I thought was interesting, and I'd be happy to share this document with each of you. This is a letter written from previous fire coordinator, Lyle Butch Jones, who's my father, back in October of 2000. Who at that point was requesting some upgrades to the facility and or replacement. And at that time, the estimated cost was about $100,000. Obviously, we're going to well exceed that today. Cost of everything going up.
There's some of it. So I am Mindy with FMFA Architects, and this is Jim. He's one of our consultants with Pepper Harmon. Hi, they are on the site, civil and structural side of this project. So since the new site has evolved, we basically have been given a survey, which is more for real estate purposes. There's still more survey information that's going to be needed. And we've been given a bit of a revised program. Your second document in the packet is more of the program elements, what is requested, what's been changed. So overall, we have a lot of site work that this Fair site, farmland, agricultural is gonna require. Leach field, clean supplies, well, water treatment, fire pumps. Retention pond, electric service. You'll see on the second page of that item, there's just questions and clarifications that we've asked already and what has been provided. So we don't have an awful lot of information on the existing site right now. As part of the original program, we're still keeping the monument and the flagpole relocation and landscape improvements. There currently is a little area on the Omeo site. There is going to be a burn building, 2 pods for burns with all the additional items that are gonna be required. These are the pre-manufactured buildings, so they'll require vent structural foundation design. Educational training building, as we've seen. Fire service storage buildings. Right now, there's proposed 2 storage parts for OES. Heated floor drains. Everything so far we've been kind of updated on what they want to include in here. A drive-through vehicle wash bay and a residential type structure for evolutions. This is kind of just the map of the area that we were originally provided, just so you guys can see where the site is across from the Meadows building. There's a residential type structure. There's a cross out through this because it was originally not included, but now it's coming back. We'll have to talk with the team once we get started. Is this going to be a 1-story, 2-story? What type of government structure? The next page is a space programming. So in the first part of the project, we did this whole space programming. We have from the schematic layout of the program of the building. So we have a square footage estimate of what the actual educational building would be. We originally had cost estimates, but those are out the door at this point because it's all changed. But overall, we think that the educational building will be close to 6,000 square feet. It'll change a bit because it's not a 2-story structure anymore. It's a 1-story structure. We don't have a walkout garage area.
And just to elaborate a little bit more on what Mindy just mentioned there with the classroom, at the current site, because of the restriction in space that we have down there, initially, we had planned to have a 2-story building with garage space underneath. At that point, the intent was to house county EMS in there as well. And the residential structure, just to expand a little bit on that, that again has to do with the non-fire evolutions that we have to do that are required. And that is just the bare bones. It's basically open wall in the event that they throw up some sheetrock or whatever to do wall breaches or something like that. That's something that is set up only specific for that evolution, but otherwise it's just an open walled structure that allows you to do specific evolutions. The wash bay was one of those, hey, it's a bucket list item. We know it's going to get cut, and it's one of those things that we would likely request to be removed anyways.
Really? Why?
Well, I would love to have it. It's just that the cost of it, I guess, is just going to be.
Well, here, how much could a wash bay cost, except for the environmental?
I don't know that. That'll be.
So, because we have the ambulances and we have your bay.
I mean, the county invests a lot of money in vehicles each year, as we know, to maintain longevity of them and or the return of.
I would even go as far to ask why wouldn't we put an undercarriage wash there at the same time? Because we live in a salt plant.
Yeah. So the long-term benefits are certainly there. It's just going to be the overhead cost that'll be a little bit intimidating, I guess, to say the least. Storage barn or barns, I guess, at this point. If you've ever been to our office, you'll see that we share the building with multiple different agencies. And you'll see a lot of the emergency services equipment that sits outside in the elements. Some of it's grant funded, some of it's local tax dollar funded. But we need to get this stuff under cover or we're going to be replacing that in the next couple of years. And we don't have the budget to do that. The funding as far as grants is just not there. We did receive some annual grants here just within the last couple of days, but it was significantly reduced. So that just kind of seems to be the wave of the future, and it's concerns that we have that we feel we really need to address sooner rather than later. Sorry.
Can I just touch on the wash bay? I agree. Let's see what you do. Don't knock it just yet, but one of the things about a wash bay is all these facilities in the program have demands, whether it be septic fields, water,
Right.
you know, and power and all that. The wash bay is probably the most demanding. It's not to say it can't be done.
No, I
We
understand.
don't know yet what's available for draw for water, because this doesn't have public water to the site. And then what would be needed for disposal of that if it can be handled in the way of the design of the septic fields. But definitely that's the kind of thing that as this goes forward, we would have to take a good look at the program, existing analysis of the site conditions, and then that leads into some investigation to determine, you know, the abilities for the site. And the big one with the wash bay is water that's coming off and the availability and demand of the water being used.
So you have a water tank there,
That would need to be.
and you also have, we just discovered today that there is a substantial well there that used to handle a 600 head, I'm sorry, 400 head, right? 400 head cattle barn. So,
And that may show that that's the ideal location for that.
Right.
And there may need to be other infrastructure incorporated in the buildable area. One of the things about the site is when we get into site analysis, the restrictions or opportunities of the site, they'll take a look at all that. We're not that engaged with, we were given a survey, it's a real estate survey, but we did notice there's a easement on the property. Seems like a conservation easement of some sort that, I don't know if that's still,
those are for the wetlands.
okay, it looks like it's a conservation easement and it is within the area of the wetland, so right away, and with wetlands, you're not really gonna, you know, you're gonna stay away from it.
Oh, yeah.
By all means. So such narrowing to where this can all happen on the site, and then we take it from there with that analysis and program development. Those are the first stages. But that's the kind of thing you see what you can do. Put all that you want in there and then start, you know, working it out after that. It might be driven by certain factors.
So the program development, all of the wish list items is really gonna go hand in hand with the site development. As we develop each of the buildings, what utilities are they gonna need? And that's gonna be important to determine how big of a water service we're also gonna need. Is that possible with all of the fire protection items? You need a lot of water on this site. So in our proposal, we're giving you an outline of all the scope of work with the different sub-consultants, between civil, landscape, structural, water infrastructure, natural environment, investigation, wetland, civil, hydrology, seeker, MEP, fire protection, archaeological studies, and then hopefully at the end of all that, we'll be able to give a cost estimate, schematic design level of what this is gonna be. So our proposal right now is only to get through schematic design to determine what's the feasibility of this project, can we do this all, and what's the budget? So architectural design, that really goes back into the programming of elements and figuring out where on the site we need to coordinating with Jim. Structural engineering, not included right now, we're eventually gonna need to do soil borings. But we need to know
I'm
where
sorry, you need to do what?
soil borings,
A lot of that's already been done.
but we need to know where the building's gonna
Okay.
go on the site, because that'll be dependent on what's recommended. Do you have reports on the soil borings?
Which would know.
I'm sorry?
Highway, Was Rich Brimmer sort of coordinated that
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah, and it, I believe it is.
Do you know if they were geotechnical, structural, or environmental?
Geotechnical structure,
Okay, so there's been no environmental investigations.
to my knowledge, no.
So we'll see if we can get that for you.
So one thing for consideration I would like you to put in your notes is the water system that's down there is chlorinating. We have a high iron content in our water. So you know what happens to it all settles at the bottom of the pipe. So we also have the correctional facility down there. So I think it's important to design a water system that is somewhat, well, quite separate from the correctional and the office complex down there. So that when they start moving large volumes of water through the system, they're not turning the entire complex brown.
Yeah, I think our initial guess is that existing that you have there to be utilized in the best manner for the best purpose there, then you're gonna need to have another well or two for how the program develops and what the building. Just making sure it's conducive to use and what that system would be. Holding tanks, any kind of recirculating chlorinated, water when it comes to the wash days, all that's the Sutton's all on board for that. They're very good with that. And they'll be needing to do some kind of a test to see what is available, even though there's a well, that's a good sign. And we would imagine there's availability below grade,
There's actually 4 wells down there.
all within that existing infrastructure, the park.
The one well we just discovered today is a substantial well.
Are they all in
Again,
the,
it's supplied to 400 pet dairy farms. So.
That's good start.
Yeah.
This is stuff we'll need to gather and understand.
are they all in that area? Wells?
They're all up close to the 60-acre area. But the farm is the actual.
Yeah.
That area, they're all in that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about the airflow of our investigations in the water infrastructure?
Yeah, so we were just talking about the water. The water infrastructure services. So one of the first things you want to do is the important stuff that you can't do the project without, and that's water. So we would have our sub-consultant that would be handling that. They'd be one of the first to engage, just to, take baby steps toward the end product of the schematic design. There's also environmental things with this particular site that just have to be cleared. So for instance, it comes up with the BEC's mapper that there's archaeological sites of concern in the vicinity of this project. So that would be required to be cleared. So there'll be a phase 1A, an early level with an archaeologist. They come in and they make their analysis of the site. And they there's different ways they can do tests. Sometimes with a farmed site. And if we decide that with that, you want to narrow it down just to where you think you're going to be doing the project, not the whole site. There's ways they can do agricultural fields where they till it up to a certain depth and they walk it and look. There's other ways they pothole it. That first phase could rule out any concerns and then you're clear as far as that goes. If they were to find something, then it goes into phase 1B. So these are all things just to be aware of as part of the process. We're in time now compared to the early 80s, there's a lot more environmental stuff that you have to deal with, like regulatory wise. The wetlands is another one. So this we all know, and it's all mapped by the DEC and Army Corps. There's areas that they're aware of wetlands. Wetlands change over time, and even the regulation. Now there's a buffer on every wetland. If it's on 4 jurisdictions, puts a 100-foot buffer. So that would have to be looked at, and we have an environmental scientist that we work with. They're very good, and they would have to go out there and flag and get a look. Maybe talked about a survey. This survey we have now is a real estate survey. It's a really good survey, by the way. just doesn't have the topography. So then there would have to be a topographic part of revisiting the survey, and I would say we would look at only doing what we need to do, not the whole property. Once we get to that point, we would need that because now we're gonna get into environmental regulations like stormwater. So this facility, it's unpaved now, we have to, well, regardless if you're doing development, you have to go in, we may have some stormwater management. Potentially directing runoff, so there's stormwater management that will come into play. We need to be outside the wetlands. As we start moving all our little buildings around and analyzing different ways, different options of laying a site out, what can be in there. Some of that stuff needs to be known. We can make assumptions from maps. You can do a lot now with the aerials. We understand when you go out to the site, you look at the field, it just stares at you. This is the area that's the most is going to happen. And then to look at with those existing buildings that are, if you got a, sounds like you got a good opportunity with existing water source. You know, those buildings, they have to be tended with. So from an environmental standpoint, there needs to be a environmental study, make sure there's no contaminants on the property. You know, that's one of the first things you do too. Just going through the motions, for us, there's no red flags. If there is, you got to contend with it. But the big one is make sure that the most important part of the project is got water. As Mindy said, water is a big part of this. I think that's one of the first things we have to really push for. And engage getting, there might have to be a test well done. Or checking out the existing wells and doing pressure tests and things like that, that they would go in and do. So. But those are the environmental ones. Seeker, you can't really get around it. We'll see where that plays out and who plays the role with Seeker, the municipality, whether it's the county or local town or whatever. But to do Seeker, all those things I just mentioned have to be proven. You get a net back for it. This is probably given the acreage, you know, once you're over 10 acres, you're type 1 type of an action becomes a Seeker. And hopefully it doesn't get into an environmental assessment or impact study or anything like that. I'm not sure it would, but that type 1 just makes sure that the due diligence is done on all these aspects. Is there anything I missed on that from an environmental standpoint?
So,
And with the topography, we look at it as identifying where we need topo taken so we can do our design. And at the same time, pick up any flagging from a wetland. So it's the pain with projects is there's a lot of upfront efforts and costs before you can really get started for us. But that's all at the schematic level. So we are cognizant of making all those efforts come together. So wetlands are delineated, topography is captured, and that mapping of the wetlands, because they're going to need that for the DEC. Give their blessing that we're outside the buffers. So there's a lot of moving parts, and some have to move before others, but they're related, you know, just the same.
One of the things we did talk about was the land is currently, have you found somebody to, find the land for the year?
Yeah, I made mention of that in our discussions at some point. Just a heads up, what we run into a lot of times with sites that want to be developed, and it's different with the private sector. So you have a landowner that wants to lease their land for somebody for a special use permit. Say it's a solar array. Those take
When do you say that?
those take 3 or 4 years to play out. The farmer says, well, I'm not going to plant my corn this year because they're thinking that's all going to happen and be done in 6 months. They don't want to put a crop in and benefit from it. And the land goes, you know, it goes untilled. And with a property like this, I don't think it's a huge concern. Because that area that's currently farmed, the land drops off a little bit. That's where all the wetlands and all that water is. Wetlands are delineated by vegetation, soil, and moisture. When the environmental scientist comes through, they can delineate it today and get a wetland boundary. If the land goes back to, you know, successional growth, it's not tilled, it's an inactive farm field. A lot of times we see this happen, all of a sudden wetland plants start emerging, DEC will always check what they do. So what we always try to make it clear to landowners is keep that active tilling, because they have the ability to till it. Wetlands, they're allowed to till what they're doing, for agriculture. But when things are left, just want to throw that out, because you don't know how long things take to
We,
play out.
we do have talked about it this morning at public works there. Agriculture.
Yeah, 'cause I have a project currently that went through that. They left it, they bought the land, the big housing tract, and it was delineated. And then there was somebody that wanted to keep leasing it, but they don't know the timing when they're doing developments. It's been 2 years, and now the wetlands, the environmental scientists went out there and said, this wetland, this area where the water's coming through just grew by like 75 feet. It was a big swath. There's a lot of real estate that they had to contend with. So just want to point that out. It's always of the best interest to keep that active, somebody utilize.
Giving you all this packet, just outlining what is gonna be included for schematic, what is not included at this time, things like topography, we can't identify that area yet. To make note, we are not connecting to any of the existing water services. Right now, at the Meadows building or the corrections, we're basing this on a whole new service. So that is all we have for you. Do you have any questions?
The only other thing I might mention, just for your information, on that property, there is a limited mine for, yeah,
Currently, there's a good permit,
so you know that.
and there's also a cemetery.
That is correct.
So those are things that the state historic preservation and recreation park recreation get into. That's clearing it. I don't know how it affects something like this, but I don't think it's that significant.
The mine is removed from its location. It's there.
So they're said removed. They're
No,
not
it's
mined.
remote.
Remote.
It's on the other side, but it's there.
And what kind of mining was that? Gravel or?
Gravel, road gravel. Primarily.
Any question?
Yes, did I hear you say you should try to keep the site under 10 acres?
No, I didn't need to imply that. I think if you're, look, I was just using a number.
Okay.
I think that field is a lot larger than
Oh,
10
larger
acres,
than that.
so we would maximize.
Do you think it would be roughly? You give us a ballpark number or not?
It all depends on how we want to consolidate and share program elements. Our goal is to make it as least expensive as possible. So we come in and we give ideas of how, some things have to be separate from each other, some can be shared. When it comes to parking, maybe a parking area can be shared between facilities. So once we start moving the different, say there's 5 components to it, we move that around. We try to maximize and consolidate, and leave room for expansion, one day if you ever have to. I would say that what we're dealing with here, we feel comfortable within that existing field and where the barns are, the farmstead. We should have adequate room. Do what we gotta do. We can't do stormwater management in the wetlands and all that, so take into account some of that has to be probably some basins, we're thinking, stormwater basins, so. Yeah, that wouldn't be like paved areas that would just, earth moving. Then they would outlet down into the existing waterways. So I would say that if we had 30 acres, just to throw a number out there, 40 acres, I think we can make this corridor.
Yeah.
And you have the field for it, so we're keeping our fingers crossed and we can get it all to fit in there. But there's a little bit of undulation in the field. There's cut and fill that'll have to happen. That's what we designed. But that disturbance area.
Question. As you've noted, this is a very large parcel. And the county is considering co-locating other projects there. How would that affect your analysis?
Well, I don't know if we know what those are gonna be. We're familiar with that, that there may be something, coming in. We would look at focusing, like I said, we try to consolidate this to make it as manageable as it can be to incorporate other elements on the overall property and leave that room for that, but we wouldn't be designing for those. In other words, those elements would have to go through the same process for their particular site. They would handle their stormwater management. Now, it's not to say we can't plan for that. And maybe our stormwater basin that we do is inviting for them to tie into, and it's done in one shot. But when it comes to costs and shared costs for that project and this project, we got to look at all that. But ideally, if we know where that, if we had an idea of the size it would take up, we don't know that. We can try to
I'm not sure.
utilize the property the best we can.
Right,
But even if we're just anticipating the need, we would try to leave that buffer, for another element. When we do this, the drive into the site, maybe that program element has to have a different drive. It has to be
Right.
separate. Those are the things we would look at. Maybe it's shared and there's way to, and then once you get in the site, it's broken off. So we
we
look at,
need an overall, I don't know, site plan that locates these different projects before you begin your work?
that would, if we had as much understanding as we could as we're doing our work, it's the best thing. Where it gets tricky is if this project that we're engaged in has a secret process.
Right.
We can't speak for something that's not designed or that we don't know
Right,
anything
right.
about. So there would be another amended site plan, if you will, later on.
Yeah.
Or before us, that takes care of its own, elements. But that's not to say we can have planning and some forethought for some of the things we know they may be glad to piggyback off of. So we would look at all that and what those outside programs are, if there's one or two other uses on the site that are, being looked at. We would need to know what size area and what kind of topography they'd be utilizing. It's gonna be the answer's flat, everybody wants it as flat as possible. So once we know the topography, we can start looking at that. We'd definitely take that into consideration. That's what we do. That's planning,
Sure.
But there are separate processes. That's a different site plan.
Yes.
Element that you'd have to deal with down the road separately.
Doesn't it make sense to do the entire parcel topography, being that these other projects are all at once instead of?
If we knew, we can't speak for a project we don't know about, what they're gonna need. But we can say where we feel comfortable for the best spending of the money to do the topography. We wouldn't do the whole site. Like I said before, we would focus on where we meet our limits, because you're not gonna go, very expensive to go into the wetlands and the woods to get that all surveyed. But there's no need to, we're not gonna touch any of that regulations, but it's to get that topography, absolutely. If maybe we look at anything that's potentially developable, and then that's captured. And if this project's willing to bear that cost, would be the question for some other project. That's not for me to decide, but we can identify, hey, if you're gonna go through the effort, so one mobilization for the surveyor and the topography, that's a great way to do it.
So as you're looking at the site and doing a site plan, so a lot of times when you would go to, say, the town of Middlefield to do the site plan, wouldn't they want to, they want to know or get a letter from New York State saying, there are no artifacts on the site, or there are no endangered species on the site? So when in the process, wouldn't it be first you would have
Well,
that discussion?
We would
Or-
look at it as desktop review,
Mhm.
information that's available. Then it would be engaged with the consultants that confirm it. That's for our information. When you're ready to go to a site plan review, and I don't know if it would have to go through the town review or not. I know a lot of times with counties, you can be your own agency and do
Oh, okay.
that review. So you may be clear of having to get a town's, I don't know how it works out
Right,
here, but
Somewhere
my
we have to
town-
check off on those things.
I'm in the town of Clay and Onondaga County. A lot of times when they have projects that are county-owned properties, they don't have to, I'm on the planning board for the town of Clay. We don't even see it. They make us aware of it and share it with us, but they're the agency with jurisdiction, so. But at the state, you're gonna have to answer to the state no matter who is the
Right.
one that's given the site plan approval. So at the time of that site plan approval, whether it's with the county planning board or the town or village, that stuff is part of secret, it has to be
Right.
cleared. So
Mhm.
what happens a lot of times is our environmental scientist looks at it, identifies a bat as a, concern. They write a letter to the DEC, and just because the DEC's maps say it is a potential concern, they could rule it out or just say that it, archaeology, that's why we would do a phase 1A. That archaeologist clears it, and then you actually let the state know, the State Historic Preservation and Parks and Recreation, and that you get that letter of response. They're saying they're okay with it for seeker. That goes with the seeker review.
Yeah, I got
To
it.
check it off.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering about how it all goes in a timeline. It seemed like we weren't really, like, we were talking about this and this,
I-
but like, what order does it all go?
That
in?
actual confirmation that they're okay that there's a cemetery on the site, it's not gonna be impacted by this project. That, you have to have a site plan to do that. They have to look at the site plan
Yeah,
and see what you're telling them, there's a cemetery here, and then they make that evaluation that this project's not gonna have any impact on that cemetery, we're not touching it, it's not, an aesthetic thing that's a concern. So at the time of site plan, that's not in the early stages,
okay,
but in the early stages, we need to get a level of comfort of where it's gonna go with that. The folks we have on as sub-consultants, our environmental scientist, DEC, a lot of times says to me, why don't you ask them? This individual, Steve, is very well known. And they ask him questions, so he usually has a good handle on how they're gonna respond to it, and they'll let us know, but we get that all cleared, if it can be cleared. You can't do anything about it. You find an artifact in the field, now you're gonna do a different type of study and all that.
okay,
So around site plan, where you get all those letters filed.
okay. So what we're doing is pre-site plan, would you
Well,
say?
we're
I just am trying to understand where
We'll
we are.
have a, we'll have a site plan, but it won't be like a.
It'll just schematic.
It'll be schematic,
Okay.
similar to what we did last time where we had all the program elements, we identified the areas of the septic fields. Driveway coming in, and we'll start seeing what we have to get together for, secret documents if necessary, we'll get the preliminary investigations done for, archaeology, wetlands, they may. So it's gonna work concurrently,
Okay, all right,
but there
thanks.
will be a site plan that comes
Yeah,
out
so-
schematic.
Process is
Okay.
gonna be such, you have information gathering and site analysis and schematic. Then you're gonna go into a little further because decisions are gonna be made on your part. Based on what we come up with, there's gonna be nailing down a way to do it, there's several options of layout. That's a schematic site plan, that goes into like a design development, which gets ready for that approval by the agency that's gonna give approval for the site. After that, it turns into contract drawings, because that's all been solidified. So hopefully there's an end game where it's being constructed, and then, there's like 4 phases along the way. Information gathering is the big one.
Thank you.
During schematic, we're definitely gonna need to know any information about other program elements from the other projects that you guys may have. After schematic, it does get a little more that start to include those in there. But. So I guess we're gonna leave you with this. And you. Review.
Good.
Okay.
Any other questions for the, about? Thank you. Thanks, Minnie. Thanks, Jim. All right, I do have one other item on the agenda for today. I want clarification, I guess, whether or not I need approval, support, or approval for Public Works. Is this September will come up on the 25th anniversary of 9/11, and our office would like to work towards a memorial service here at the main facility here, 197 Main.
So you will need public works.
Public Works, okay,
But you can get this for committee's approval as well.
okay.
So it's a motion. Motion second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Mickle. Aye. Powers.
Aye.
Burlingame.
Aye.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Only other item, we are still waiting guidance from state health department regarding the county comprehensive EMS plan. Even though we're still within that, needs to be done by this window. It's going to be very narrow. So as soon as we,
So what are the consequences if you don't get
great question. I don't know. Nobody seems to answer
New
that.
York State's going?
I don't
They
know.
won't even notice.
So
Did they extend it already? Like, didn't they extend the deadline? It
No, there-
wasn't
there was
supposed to be like
talk-
this,
there
and
was
then they were
talk,
gonna
yeah,
move
there
it.
was talk that they were going to do that, but they rescinded that and went with their initial. I think it's what, 6 months or less now that we're looking at this point. So it's going to be a lot of work, but we'll manage. We always do. Well, that's it.
All right,
You have
anybody else
questions?
have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the list is,
Denise is online.
oh, there she is.
Hi.
Oh,
So for those of you who are here this morning, I am here before you again asking for the same resolution. Again, this is not a county attorney resolution. I was asked to present this. And we are seeking a resolution for a bond for $1.8 million. And I will share with you what was originally requested, and then I can share with you all what was agreed or what was at least approved by way of Public Works. Originally, it was,
interrupt you for just one moment.
of course,
I don't know that you need a resolution from this committee other than you're briefing us because it's a public works issue.
we were bringing it to both committees. I think based upon it was initially for the planning expenses for the construction of the new jail. And I thought that that's the reason, having, in addition to just the buildings for Public Works, but also some of the internal operations work of the jail as well. But I will just share with you the information and we can move forward how you wish. So originally it was brought up preliminary planning expenses for construction of a new jail, public safety training center, and central highway garage, including incidental expenses. And then at Public Works today, that was changed. And the change was, and please, Representative Wilbur or Powers, whoever was there, if I'm misstating this, please correct me. 1.8 million for the preliminary planning expenses for the fire training center, for the central highway garage, and site assessment for those two, and a site assessment for the public safety building, which includes the jail. That is it.
Right, and the only thing that, the only inclusion for the public safety building was for the assessment of where it would have to go if it was ever built, so that land is reserved.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I have it listed, as like the site assessment for the public safety building. And like I said, including the jail. And I think that that's what the underlying request. Yep.
Does not include design for a jail, and it does not include program assessment.
Right. And I actually had an opportunity to speak with Dan Hammer in between the two sessions. And it looks like there was, and this is based upon a quick conversation with him, so we can dive into this a little bit deeper. But initially, the board had approved a resolution for $374,000 for the SMRT contract. And that was a combination of the 274 for the operational portion, program planning, and a site assessment. And the language isn't a site assessment. It's I'm not sure the exact language from SMRT, but that was like an additional 100,000 that was added on to that resolution. So, yeah, so I'm here before presenting this all to you, and you all can ask questions. I don't have a lot of those answers. Again, this is not my resolution. I'm just bringing it forth before you. Steve is here to answer any questions that you may have.
I have some questions.
Sure.
1.8 seems like quite a high number for what we are talking about. So how was that number derived? And also, it seems to me that lumping these three things together rather than having them assessed separately by the board is a mistake. And that there may be parts of this that the board can be in agreement on, and there may be parts of this the board will not be in agreement on. And I don't understand why right now they're being lumped together.
Because you just don't play pin the tail on the donkey and say, let's put a jail here.
That
So,
assumes
can I
there's going to be a
finish?
jail.
I'm sorry,
That assumes there's going to be a new jail.
you don't know that there's not.
You don't know
I
that
don't
there
know
is.
that either.
I can add a little history.
Can I finish?
Might be helpful.
Can I finish?
Of course.
Thank you. So the jail is overseen by Commission on Corrections. They have the ultimate say on where it goes and where it doesn't go. So if you don't reserve that site ahead of time, you may never build it. You may never build it. But if you don't reserve that site ahead of time, and then you decide you need one down the road and you've already taken that spot, you've got a problem.
Again, I would say, I think it is up to the members of the board to decide whether or not that is the best use of our resources
And
at
that's what
this
we're doing.
time and decouple these things so we can look at them individually on the merits and decide how we actually want to spend our resources rather than bringing three things that are, while they may impact each other, they are separate decisions to be made by the board, and then couple together the ones that the board agrees to do and look at it that way.
I think, Leslie, that this actually does allow for that from a 30,000-foot view. So we just made significant investment on the property. And we, as a board, have been discussing just that issue that you just broached. The fact that the jail, the other two projects that we've been talking about for upwards of 6 or 7 years now. And I think that what our approach has been to date has been to look at the parcel and take a full-on comprehensive view of how to spend our resources on the parcel and use the parcel to its maximum effectiveness, which we don't know about how the board will vote on a jail. We have been told, we know that it's on the table to do one. We don't know what the Board of Commission on Corrections will eventually say. Your facility may or may not be amenable in the future. We don't know. So meanwhile, we spent $1 million to buy land. So let's not squander it. I mean, that's a very loose word, but let's go very intentional. That's a more positive way to say how I look at this, that we're trying to use it to the best of our ability and maximize its potential. And if we don't do all three projects, then at least we never got in our own way about where the projects were going to land.
But how did we derive at 1.8? What is that covering?
I'll have to ask Steve.
That is,
In 24, the county went through a capital improvement program assessment, and the board voted to identify the top priority projects, not with funding attached, but with what were the most important projects. All three of these were in that top list. In addition, when the departments got together, they said, if we have the possibility of co-locating these at a site, we didn't own it at the time, that would have important operational efficiencies. So the county went forward and attempted and did secure that site. Okay? I think fundamentally, this was,
I think you're missing my question.
Yeah. Like-
What does the break down the 1.8 for us? What does the 1.8, how did we come, how is this costing $1.8 million? What does the $1.8 million?
1.8 was originally meant to include the land purchase and I think some amount, I believe about $500,000 to run an RFP to identify an overall project manager for the entire site and all three projects. It has subsequently changed in part because the sheriff went through an RFP for the design of the jail that included elements of the others and brought that forward. The board adopted or authorized that purchase, but we said, okay, we don't have funding for it. So there was a negotiation amongst board members and with the firm.
So this vote does include design of a jail.
No,
It does
we
not.
pulled that out.
It as a
Oh,
it's a little. It was originally to include programmatic and operational assessment about what might go into a public safety building. At at Public Works, we wanted to back away from that, and it also included an overall site assessment, so we can decide, so we can safely put perhaps these other higher priority projects in a way that doesn't impact if we do put a public safety building.
So how much is the overall site assessment of the 1.8 million?
Just 100,000.
Okay.
so
And that is, if you're going on, Steve, if you're going on what I have said to you, that needs to be researched more because I'm not, that is like a quick look by Dan Hammer on the RFP. So
We don't think we need 1.8, but now this afternoon I've heard that we're talking about lumping in the owning on the SWEC
transfer station.
transfer station.
That's right.
So you're asking us to vote on $1.8 million today, and we don't even have a clear outline of what that covers.
So let's be clear, the 1.8 is merely an authorization. There will still need to be contracts negotiated and come back for specific spending. All it does is 1.8 says, if necessary, we will issue short-term debt for this, which is the lowest cost option.
Sorry, okay, so let's say 100,000 roughly is the site. $1 million of it, am I to understand, is to pay ourselves back for the purchase. Is that right?
I don't even.
No.
Can
Said
somebody
this
break down
$1.8
the
million covered the
1.8?
purchase of the property.
All the 1.8 is doing is giving you the room for financial to do what we need to do. It does not
What is
say,
the what?
it does not say that we have to spend it.
Okay,
So,
So it's evolving. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It's evolving. This morning, when we walked in, it was to Public Works, it was programmatic and operational assessment, money for a site, and some money for an overall project manager reporting to the board, and some amount for the fire training academy. That was unclear.
I nixed the program assessment. Because there's no sense of doing a program assessment for a jail that we're not even close to considering.
And that's time sensitive things, right? Like that,
Correct.
that.
So by the time, if you
go.
decided 5 years from now,
You have to do it again.
you'd have to do it all over again. So in addition to that, architectural fees and costs run about 10 to 15% of the project. So 1.8 million is not going to cover design of the jail.
putting that aside, it feels so fuzzy. And it seems to me we are putting the cart before the horse of authorizing a dollar amount to maybe go towards certain things and maybe go towards other things, that does not make very
Because
much
it's a
sense.
process to go for funding. I don't think we need 1.8, but it's out of my.
But it also
bailiwick.
sounds like we may,
I see something.
Yeah.
I mean, we paid $147,000 to have the transfer station spec'd out. We got a lot of work done for $147,000. I strongly suspect you're talking about that kind of money to go in there and just figure out where things are gonna go. That's what we're talking about.
That, and then starting to move forward with the fire training center.
There's no problem with the fire training center.
I-
I question how we're gonna finance it. I have some questions about that, but I certainly would be in favor of a fire training center.
So the whole purpose of this, and I think Alan explained this more, was, we are gonna go and enter into a band of a certain number, right?
And Rachel, what? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Band.
On anticipation of those short-term borrowing. We're gonna borrow a number. Hopefully, everything that we need to do, which those items will be voted on independently, individually, going through the process. But this gives us a number to borrow, and if we only spend 900,000, turn that other 900,000 back that we don't use. But we can't anticipate every dollar at this point, what we need for that. So that's why we aren't bonding, because then we're locked in, we can't pay that off early.
right, but frequently, you end up spending up to what you borrow, number one. Number two, it seems to me, we might consider other ways of financing this if it were significantly less expensive, that wouldn't cost us money to do a ban and cost us interest, right? We might borrow the money from ourselves if it's a couple $100,000 versus 1.8 million. We might even borrow 1.8 from ourselves, but to authorize that amount with such lack of clarity about what it might be going towards, I think is a mistake. And to Jim's point, we have been going through this process in SWEC on the transfer station, down to very minute details, what this is going to cost and what we are getting for every penny of that. This feels so fuzzy to me.
But there was money somewhere to develop those plans for you to discuss. That's where we're at today. How do
Yeah,
we-
it wasn't even close to 1.8 million to develop those plans for us to discuss. Not even close.
The primary goal of this is, I think I said it at the board meeting, that I don't believe some of these facilities will be built while we're sitting on this board. But we are attempting to set up our successors to be able to build the jail, the highway garage, or whatever.
I think we
We
should,
need to, the primary thing that needs to come out of this is where the jail, the public safety building would be sited on that property. Then we can do the other things. That, out of this band, that's my goal, is to get things sited. Where's the logical place so that someone else in the future can hopefully, here we go, we're ready to go. So.
I think they should be voted on separately.
I had a follow-up.
They would be voted on separately, because every step going forward where you authorize spending of money will be voted on.
I'll only support a resolution for something like this if the resolution says that
What's that?
everything will be voted on separately in the
That's our
future.
purchasing policy. That's our purchasing policy. We can't spend money on anything without going through committees. Correct?
Yeah,
Denise?
but I mean, we're sitting here as stewards of our constituents. $1.8 million for, there's not even something on the board of what that's going towards. Like, I don't even have a clear idea, and I don't feel comfortable supporting that without something in writing. We have this, right? That's it. This is about all the folks that they're gonna hire and what they're going to do.
Yeah, we should have this for every single one. I feel comfortable with the fire training center because there's something in front of me I can look at and say, this is where constituent money is going. Where is it for the other thing?
If
Where
I
is
left this
this?
meeting and this conversation now, and a taxpayer asked me what the $1.8 million was going to, I don't think I could give them a clear answer. And I don't have anything in writing to show them either, and that feels unresponsible, or irresponsible.
Can I ask a question? When you say something like that, are you talking about through construction of the, like the
No,
jail?
like something that just says, my representative just voted to spend $1.8 million, and there's nothing even on paper to tell me what she is supporting $1.8 million towards.
You didn't vote to spend it. You voted to secure it.
And that has costs. Securing that money has costs. There's interest, there are
Look.
costs to that.
So in my head, assessment, I don't think we need 1.8 million either, but it's out of my area of expertise, so
Who's asking for it then?
Yeah, I mean, Denise says she's just here to present it, which is fine, but where is this coming from?
Okay, $1.8 million was the original estimate to purchase the land and pay for an overall project manager of all three projects reporting to the board to make sure that these individual elements are not planned and executed in isolation of each other.
But we have not agreed to all three projects.
That was the
that is
original.
correct. But I'll say it again. Look, I've had years and years and years of experience in corrections, facility management, and codes. So if you want to ignore all that, I really don't care, because I'm going to be sitting in my lanai in 6 months sipping a drink. Okay? And I really don't care. I'm trying to do the best thing I can do for the county, looking ahead.
Who came
And
up
if
with
you
the one?
ignore this and then you discover 5 years from now that you need a
Please
jail,
don't talk
I'm going
about
to be laughing at you,
Please don't talk out to me.
Hey.
I'm asking questions.
because you're doing the same to me, whether you understand that or not.
I have a question.
To me,
Wasn't this a deal with the sheriff during budget time or something?
One second.
Wasn't this a deal with the sheriff during budget time? He was gonna do something if we make sure we did this or not? No?
I feel like some of the money was, we came up with an amount and some of it was to include a project manager. But I think what we're doing is authorizing, and I would like to see when we come to admin, if we could break out the 1.8 million, even if we could just say this much for this, but we're probably not gonna use it, or however it all adds up to 1.8 million. But some of it was for a project manager to do to concurrently, as Representative Wilbur mentioned, make sure that each project was taken as part of the whole and represent the best interest of the county during, planning, architect, construction, the whole 9 yards. So if we're not doing that anymore, then that's gonna minus out 500K right off the top. But
Right.
so we want to be able to fund ourselves, to be able to do our due diligence as we approach the parcel.
I understand that, but if you
Yeah.
take out, if the 1.8, if $1 million of it was for the purchase of the parcel, we've already done that. And 500,000 of it was for the project management, and we haven't yet agreed that these are the projects.
And I'll agree with you on that.
Then we're down to 300,000.
Well,
and why
no,
are we doing-
I'm gonna disagree with you there. You're gonna have 150,000 for estimate, 150,000 do an overall assessment. Okay. Then you're gonna have 350,000 for the design of the fire training center. You probably have some incidentals in there. So I would say you probably want at least 750,000.
And after talking to Alan about the 6 million, we're
But wait a
talking,
minute,
hold
you
on.
got the garbage thing too.
Yes, and after talking to Alan about the 6 million, it seems to me like that 750, the recommendation may very well be we borrow that money from ourselves and avoid paying. So like,
and we did talk.
I'm fine with that. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, this
I-
just feels like 1.8 feels like double, more than double that amount. I don't think we should authorize more than double the amount. If we need to go up at some point because it is clear these other things are moving forward, that is a different issue. But we all talked about it today. The minute you borrow the money, it goes.
So I'm going again by our financial advisor. That's out of my area of expertise. He said we needed 1.8. That's what I'm going.
But all I'm hearing
If
is
you
that
don't think so,
1.8
I'm okay with
is
that.
tied to things that was a decision made when the scope of the project looked different.
So
So let's get something on paper that's based on the scope of the project as it sits today.
that's fine. That makes a lot of sense to me. It would be significantly less than what was moved forward. Remember, the board officially said these were the top priorities in the investment plan. And before we move forward with any of this, it was, is there generally support for these projects? We're gonna come back to you with cost estimate. That's what this was. Things appear to have changed, okay? And so we can easily put together, I don't know about easily, but we may have to do some contracting work to see if we can pull together a I think all we're looking for is an assessment of possible projects, site assessments.
So
Is that what you kind of have in mind?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for this piece. The follow-on to that is, it sounds to me like we are gonna have to think seriously about revising the capital investment program to identify what in fact are the core priorities.
That's a question.
Apparently everyone thinks the fire training academy is now the top priority.
always has
Fine,
been.
let's put that down. Right?
What money have we paid these people to do any work for us at all?
Very minimal.
So they don't have any real plans for us at all.
No, and what happened here was just a little history. There was a very severe miscommunication.
Okay.
We were under the impression that the design was well on the way for Oneonta.
Yeah.
And then when we were purchasing the property, we got a figure, and I don't know if it came from them or where it came from, but it just appeared, of $350,000 just to move the
Yeah.
facility to Cooperstown.
Do you know what their cost was before the 350,000 was added to it?
No, it was under 100. So he said, no, we're not paying 350,000 to move a facility. So we asked SMRT to include that in their RFP, thinking we weren't going to pay 350,000 for them to relocate it. Turns out, we found out in the meantime, it was miscommunication. It was going to be about 350,000 for the actual design that had not been started yet. So we said, oh, all right. So that's why we're still with them. SMRT does not have, they have some experience, but they do not have a lot of experience in burn towers and fire training centers. Our MSA does. Okay. So they're back on the table. They were the preferred design for the fire training center. But again, if you're going to invest this kind of money, you've got the 1 point, whatever we paid for the property, 1.2, I guess it was, finally.
I think it was 1.2.
You're gonna have $5 million, probably for the fire training center. We haven't even talked about the highway garage yet. So I have no clue on that. I know the jail is contentious. You're saying you don't want it, you don't need it now. Wait. New York State's gonna come down on you. And you're gonna be boarding people out and it's gonna cost a fortune. But I'm not gonna be here, not my decision, not my care.
I will go back to, it seems to me it makes sense to come back with something that is way more specific to where we are at now, what we're talking about needing funding for now and where the money will actually go, rather than a vague number that is not tied, that is tied to something historic that no longer seems pertinent.
So I want to make sure Denise agrees with this. But what we can do is go back out to SMRT and ask for a much more detailed proposal for the cost of an overall site assessment.
And that's it, nothing beyond that.
And that's it. If that is what we get, depending on the cost, I think we have a rough number of 100,000. We can probably completely skip the debt for this, and possibly pull it out of contingency or some other place.
So,
I'm having a hard time understanding why we wouldn't do that. Why we would spend 1.8 and now we're like, oh well, 200,000 might actually work.
Well,
That's a very
So
big
the
difference.
reason for that is the 1.8 happened when we were under the impression, right, that the board was looking for multiple projects on this site. Judging from the conversation recently, that no longer seems to be the board consensus. In that circumstance, it makes perfect sense, right, not to overstudy.
the board has
This
changed
project.
too, by the way.
We don't need to do that at this point. So the board's intention on this, right, appears to have changed.
So here's my, and again, I think we need to talk to SMRT to get an assessment, what it would cost to do an overall assessment. No program assessment and no design for a jail, because you're not gonna pay for that $1.8 million anyway. But do an overall assessment, then move on to MSMA. They spoke today about the assessment they're gonna have to do. You wanna have enough to cover that. The transfer station in Oneonta. Right?
So.
Right, there's a ban for that.
But that's let's
reasonably
take
stuff.
that separately,
All right, so
because
we're
this
gonna
may
do that
not,
separate.
this may, well, maybe, but it doesn't sound like this is gonna require that kind of financial vehicle for what we're talking about.
It depends what we do. If we move forward with some work on the fire training academy,
Understood.
right, that potentially might go in there. But I have to say, budget officer wise, right, $5 million will require a serial bond, right? Likely. And we're not in a good position to get the best. We would get, I think, poor interest rates going forward.
So is that why you're saying go for a ban on this stuff? Instead of taking it out of contingency?
I don't think, at this point, I have no idea what the one thing, the overall site assessment will cost.
I think it's gonna be about 100 and a half.
If that's it, I would not do a ban. I would not do any debt. I would probably take it somewhere out of operations. I think it might be small enough.
So at the end of SWEC this morning, when Alan was with us, we looked at the 5 million for the Southern Transfer Station and issuing a ban for that. And Alan was very clear on the fact that we should look at the financing for both of these things kind of together. Because every
Makes
time
sense.
you get a bond or a ban, you have to pay to have it be issued to you. So being a banker, clearly, should have been a banker. You get paid for people to give them money, but anyway. So he thought the issuance of those financial instruments costs each time you do one. So we should try to put it all together and do one. And I asked for an admin to have a comprehensive look at this 1.8 million plus the the 5 million that we need for the southern transfer, and then to look at it together.
The reality is, until we have a plan, we actually don't know how much money we are going to need to develop that site, right? And so either we're going to delay the funding for the transfer station, or it's going to end up being two separate things because, and it sounds to me like to get that assessment and that plan is not anywhere close to an amount that we would need to even add it to this. So
I think you're gonna need 150 for the assessment. For the overall assessment, guesstimate, but you need to talk to SMRT on it.
Mhm.
Then you're gonna need, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, 100,000 for MSMA and do their assessment. You're gonna need 350 to do the design of the fire training center. So you're at about 650, 700,000 right there.
That, Dan, the risk in that, right, is then what is the delay from getting that work done to when we can afford to take out a serial bond to pay for the construction? And that could be multiple years.
That's your, well,
All right. That's what I worry about, budget officer.
so you're saying multiple years to do the fire training center?
The fire training center may, and all of these projects, if they require serial bonds, may have to be delayed until we can build up our unassigned fund balance reserve.
We've only been talking about this since you've been here, Steve. At least. It's 10 years old on this training center. I've been here 11 years and we've been talking about it that long.
Yes.
And I think it's been made plain to you that it's a priority. Is it not?
Alas, it's not been made clear to the board if you look at the board's various decisions in terms of.
If you go back and look at votes, that's been a priority for a number of
It
years.
is a priority. I understand that.
And now you're telling us it's going to be another number of years.
It depends on the financial decisions you want to make. If you're willing to pay extra interest, 0.75%, right? You can absolutely do it, right? If you want to risk some of the, it might be useful to have this conversation at admin next week when we do the overall budget presentation for this year. That might be very helpful. But I know exactly that we've been talking about
this conversation.
Pardon me?
We've been having this conversation with you since you've been here at multiple budget hearings.
Yep. I'm perfectly aware of the priority. So Denise and I will reach out to Dan Hammer and to SMRT, right, and get an updated cost. There may be an issue because this substantially changes from what was in the original RFP that led us to SMRT. So we may have to do something, right, with contracting that may require us to do another firm. I'm just laying that out in case we have to come back to you later saying, oh, we got a contract. I'm not sure if we do, right? But I've been burned too many times on saying we can do something when maybe we can't. Would you agree or not agree or add some more insight on that, what I just said, Denise?
I mean, I don't really have much to add. No.
Okay. So
why would you throw a $1.8 million figure at us and now tell us that we don't likely have the money to build the fire training center?
I'm really curious about that.
The board, up until this board, made very clear, both formally and in our informal conversations, as we were trying to purchase the property, that we wanted to locate all three projects, including the fire training center, on the site we now own. It was clear to me at that time that the fire training center was probably the top priority. Right? But remember, the sheriff was aggressively pushing on the jail, and there was acceptance or concurrence that that was also a top priority.
I would beg to differ, at least from my point of view. I would like to put out there that it's never been one of my top priorities. And the fire training center is, and the highway garages. When we were purchasing this property, it was that was a potential thing that may go there, not a top priority, right? So I feel like I don't want those words put in my mouth. That was not a top priority for me. I guess maybe you're speaking as a board of a whole. I did approve the purchase of the property, right, for these other things, but
All right,
I don't.
this is going nowhere. Let's move on.
So this passed in Public Works this morning. So what does that mean now?
This can be brought to admin, for admin to consider as well. I mean, it's a unique situation that's being brought to two committees, and I mean, that was at the request that we collectively thought it was most important, because we have the buildings and public works, and we also have PSLA, which is the operational aspect of many of these things. So we brought it to both committees. We can bring it to the administration committee at this point, either with the 1.8, which was previously passed in public works, or we can propose something else if you'd like.
I think we need to get an exact estimate from each of the parties and then bring it to admin. But I don't know what the point is, because now we're being told that we may not get financing on the ban.
I'm not sure that we make
No,
a decision on
that's not
how
what I
much
said.
anything's gonna cost if we don't do the assessment on it. How do you get to a final number of potential?
Okay.
If you don't do the exploratory stuff in the front? I think we need to do some of the
You
exploratory
have to.
stuff in order to come up with those final numbers. So for anybody to say, we're not gonna be able to afford to do something in the future, I think is totally irresponsible at this point. And I think that is something that we need to do the homework to find out what it will cost before we shoot something in the ass at this point.
Thank you.
Pardon my French.
I think we need to have a conversation with Mr. Ruffles too.
So do we need to vote on anything right now?
No. What's to vote on? We're not gonna agree on anything, because we all think that 1.8 is over the top.
Right, but do we need to vote no on that because it passed?
Public Works.
Public
but it
Works.
passed
It's gotta go to
Going to
admin.
admin.
First of all, it's a public works issue. This committee has no jurisdiction over that.
No.
Right, I
It
know.
was
And
brought here
Denise,
for informational
Okay.
purposes.
Well,
was that your impression, Denise, that it wasn't going to be voted on here today?
Well, I actually thought it was going to be voted on because of the initial thing that I brought to you. But what had been changed in Public Works takes that out. And it's only the outside, because initially we had talked about, or at least what was in the bond resolution, was the operational, because the first contract, the SMRT, is operational. It's more than just the outside buildings. But that has been eliminated as of Public Works. So now
Right.
it is strictly
That's-
just.
No sense to do an operational assessment when you're not even looking at a jail. Because by the time, if you ever get to that point, it's gonna be no good. So why would you do that?
great.
So at this point, Representative Wilbur, is it your request that the folks get numbers to provide to you, or how?
I think
For
I would think
admin?
numbers to be provided to go to admin.
Okay, and those numbers are going to be, again, and I don't want to keep saying this, but like, I'm not organizing the fire training facility. I'm not organizing the public safety building. So those numbers need to come from, I would suspect, the department heads who are managing those or would be expected to manage those facilities.
Correct.
Okay.
And as far as I've always understood, this committee does not have jurisdiction over buildings and property issues.
That's correct. That's Public Works. Yep.
So we're gonna be asking the sheriff to ask SMRT to do a detailed,
You can't contact them directly.
we can if you direct us to do so.
All we need is, what is it gonna cost to do an assessment of the property? Depict the prime location based on their knowledge and experience with COC for a correctional or public safety building, if and when it ever gets built.
Great.
Then you move on to the fire training center and highway garage. And you reserve that parcel of land, whatever they
Right.
identify.
But we're not doing the detailed assessment of fire training or highway at this point.
No.
Just the site location,
Correct.
right? Then I would request that the committee direct me to do this with Denise, because I believe or with Denise to work with Dan Hammer on the contracting issues that may
So
be here.
it'd be the overall assessment. It would be the exploratory process that they discussed this morning for the fire training center. Once that's been identified. Right? That's not free. They're gonna charge for that. And then potentially the design for the fire training center. After that's been completed.
The exploratory process then would be what they included in this document. I'm fuzzy on the fire training academy. Probably programming and pre-design for them, or just the site assessment. I mean,
All right, somebody else explain it, because I'm sorry.
somebody can explain this, you know.
Yes, I can explain it to you. You need to have the sites laid out to where we're gonna build each facility. Or even potentially different sites. It's someone like, not
Yeah.
dumb, but someone like that, they can come in and say, you could do this, you could do this, so we have some choices of how we're gonna do this.
Great, that I understand, multiple options for us for all of these
So we make some
facilities.
decisions. We don't
on
want
this
somebody to come in and say, you're gonna do this way. We wanna be able to say, this way.
Right.
Got
Just
it.
some plan options.
That's not a problem. I understand that.
Thank you, and I don't care who it is, as long as they're qualified.
And is this schematic design for the SMSA, the 175,000, is that an accurate number for their fee schedule?
Is that what they have down there?
Schematic design, lump sum fee,
Yeah.
175K.
No, we don't need a schematic design.
I mean, like after we do the overall site assessment.
Only thing we need from SMSA is what is the ideal location, public safety
Not much.
facility.
So I'm clear, the task is to get those site location for these things.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
And then the department heads who are managing this are going to then get the information that you need for any sort of design, building.
They
other-
can tell us what they think would work best, but we're gonna have the choice on where to put it. That's gonna be the
Yeah,
board.
and so, yep, okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
But at this point, if Mr. Wilson is saying we don't have the ability to
My opinion,
finance anything,
we're gonna be into the budget season before we know what we're,
what's the point?
right, then we're gonna have to start and figure out what we can do. And I don't think we're out of options. I think we're just gonna work real hard at it to figure out what we're gonna do. Cause I have, we think we do need a fire training
I agree.
facility.
It sounds to me like it may, the debt instrument may be more expensive for us to
I'm
do
sorry,
that.
what?
It sounds like the instrument the financial instrument we will need to go for in order to do that may end up being more expensive for us. That's what I heard
Yes.
him say. Not that we can't do it,
Right.
but we'll have to make a decision whether or not we want to do it
Correct.
for slightly higher interest.
So do we want to include, again, I'll say it again, the design, the overall assessment of the land to determine, not saying we're building anything, what and where it would go if we built it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
We have to
Yes,
do that.
that's what I think
So then
we've been asked to do.
do we want to also include in there what MSMA spoke about today about doing the assessment for the facility, fire training facility, for water, for
I,
drainage, for all of that, archaeological,
I would not. I just want to be clear right now. I think it's vitally important for the board to clearly say, knowing estimated costs for all of that and how we might pay for it, which may include, as Leslie suggested, somewhat higher costs. And I think that's a second decision.
so if you're gonna go
that we should make.
forward with that anyway, why wouldn't you have that done preliminary?
Because I don't know that the board's gonna wanna pay those extra costs.
So you're talking about
They
the
have to
one
give us the
seventy-five,
choice.
that's SMSA.
Right.
No, I'm talking, yes, then that's, maybe it's good. SMRT is gonna be somewhere around 150, maybe to 175 for the overall assessment, right? Then SMSA is gonna do archaeological, they're going to do water assessment, drainage assessment, and what have you. Why don't we have that done?
I wouldn't do it because you don't wanna do all that work and then find you can't move forward for several years on construction.
None
For
of
the
that's-
same reason
none
that
of
you don't
that's
wanna
gonna
do that.
change.
Pardon me?
None of that's gonna change.
Sooner we get it done, sooner we can move forward.
Right. You
It's not
seem,
like
you
that
seem
data will
bent
age
on
out.
delaying this fire training center, and I'll say that straight out, you've been doing that for years. And that's not the wishes of the board. You've heard very clearly, it was a unanimous vote that the direction of the board is they want this fire training center.
Do the vote, I'll do what the board says.
I want the fire training center, but I think it would be cleaner to just figure out where everything's going first, then say, okay, this is your spot. This is what you got to work with.
Well, yeah, you do that, but I'm saying you already had the money in line. Okay, next step. Or whatever. All right, let's just move on. So you're gonna get the assessment fee, figure out what that's gonna be, and that's what we're gonna vote on, I guess, right?
All right, Denise,
At the administration committee, we are going to get the assessment. I will speak with SMRT. I believe it is already outlined in their proposal. And I will just confirm that and bring the number back to you. And I think it was right around 100,000.
okay,
But I'll confirm that and bring that back to you.
Is that all for you, Denise?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jennifer Lucio, County Clerk.
Yeah. A couple of things. The easiest one is the fall conference, the Michigan Youth Fall Conference.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing no discussion, roll call vote.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Mickel.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
Brilliant.
Aye.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Second quick one I have is a request to get an office credit card off the county. When I went to last conference, it was kind of an issue because our.
You don't have a credit card?
No,
No, she's got-
I used the treasurers, so what happened was they were going before I got back, so.
Okay,
kind of-
so we have a motion.
Second.
Second discussion. Again, roll call vote.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Mickel,
Aye.
Powers,
Aye.
Brilliant,
Yes.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, third one I have is to purchase another stationary DMV workstation for Oniana. So that way we can reserve the laptop and that printer, because there's a lot of wear and tear on it. Total cost for that 1,700. I do have it in my budget that I could utilize. This was the third
Motion.
station.
Second.
Motion second discussion. Motion carried. I'm sorry. Roll call vote.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Mickel,
Aye.
Powers, Brilliant,
Yes.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, last one I have is creating a senior motor vehicle clerk position. It would be abolishing motor vehicle clerk. This one, well, they all kind of do the training. Train people, they put together a training book, they answer all the questions for the newbies. Currently, they're at a grade 8, it would be bumping up to a grade 9, depending on who gets it, the step difference. Difference annually is 1,751 to 2,076.
Motion.
So moved.
Second. Second. I didn't hear that. So. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Mickel.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
Brilliant,
Aye.
Basile.
Yes.
Carried. Anything else?
That is all.
Okay.
You.
Next on the agenda, make a
Have one quick today. Just need to renew the lease for our satellite office in Oneonta. It's going up $12.16 a month. A majority of our cases come from that area, so we do probably 50%, if not more, of our cases out in that satellite office. There's nothing changing other than the increase of the $12.16.
So move.
second
Second.
discussion. Roll call vote.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Mickel,
Aye.
Powers,
Aye.
Brilliant,
Aye.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried. Is that all? Okay, next up is public defender.
The first is an update on revenues. I wanted just to give us an update on what we've received this week.
Thank you. So to date, we have received nearly $570,000. That's of the 900,000.
Okay. So an update on the lease for 189 Main Street. In your packet, there's the most recent draft of the lease for 189 Main Street. I got a phone call from the landlord yesterday, however, he has a vacancy. He has another tenant that's leaving, and he thinks this other space would actually be much more suitable for us, and it would probably not require any construction in it. So I'm gonna go look at it tomorrow. If it seems like it's a better fit, then you know, that might be really good timing. And that, maybe that's, I don't need a vote or anything.
No, I mean.
I'll take a look at it first. I'll take pictures.
Sure.
Yeah. An update on the assigned council program MOU. So this is the agreement with Delaware County. So that's also in your packet. This was reviewed by Joe Ormetti. You know, made some changes and which I've incorporated. We've also included the budget
or the amounts that Delaware County will be paying the county in here. And I'm gonna send this most recent version to the county attorney's office for them to review. Also attached, and it's referenced, I think, in the MOU, is the budget projection for 2026 and 2027. So this is the first sort of budget projection for the assigned council programs. We did this in order to make sure that the amounts in the MOU were correct. So if any, I don't know if you guys have even a chance to look at that yet, or if you have any questions about it, but you can answer any questions, or we can talk about it another time, or you can email questions or stop by anytime.
Home Farm Road?
The business address. I guess.
Oh, okay, I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure that out.
Yeah.
I do have one question.
Oh, yeah.
Does the budget projection allow for if we hire more staff,
This,
or is that like fluid?
it's,
Oh, I see.
it includes the, there's 3 positions that this includes, and that's what has been contemplated. ILS will be attending admin, next week to give a presentation, to sort of talk a little bit more about the role of the managing attorney and the coordinator. You don't have that coordinator position. Yeah, oh, yeah, I need to bring that to admin. So this committee has already approved the coordinator position. But just because there have been a lot of questions about why do we need an attorney in that office, you know, on the top. What, and I'm not a good salesman. Better to hear from ILS, and I think they can explain it much better than I can. And they
Well,
have
they
been,
did once. They did
Yeah.
this once. I asked the same question.
yeah. I mean, so they're gonna present to admin. They would have been here today. It didn't work for their schedule, so I thought admin was the next best thing.
Anybody have an objection to that?
So did that answer your question?
Just as interested. Thank you.
The next item is an MOU with Legal Services of Central New York. This is just a friendly MOU that says we're gonna send clients to them if they're having housing insecurity issues, stuff that we don't deal with. And if our clients need help with that and they agree for us to send their information to legal services, then we would do that. So that we would need a vote on. And that should be in your heart.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that, please. Second,
Okay.
discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Mickle.
Aye.
Powers.
Aye.
Brilliant.
Aye.
Basile. Yes.
Motion carried.
And then just a quick reference to credit card purchases. All of those purchases are reimbursed by ILS. And then I had a request for executive session for reason number F.
I'm sorry for what?
Reason number F.
Yeah. You're gonna have a motion for an executive session for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, the removal of a particular person or corporation. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll invite in town attorney. Right?
Right.
Understand? You want the invitation? Welcome back to the June 11th Public Safety and Legal Affairs. I need a motion to come back into executive or regular session.
Second.
A motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're back in session.
So I'm asking for a motion to create, fund, and fill a second legal fellowship position contingent upon personnel approving the position. And it would be identical to the fellowship that already exists.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Mickle,
Aye.
Powers,
Aye.
Brilliant,
Yes.
Basile.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you. That's the end of the agenda. Does anybody have anything else?
So Sheriff Devlin was originally on the agenda and he's no longer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Going adjourned.